After a long and tiring day at work, Emily found herself walking alone through the deserted streets of the small town. The sun had set, and the darkness of the night had engulfed the town, creating an eerie atmosphere. Her heart pounded in her chest as she quickened her pace, eager to reach the comfort and safety of her home. As she passed by the flickering street lamps, the shadows seemed to dance around her, whispering sinister secrets that sent shivers down her spine. But she tried to dismiss her fears as mere figments of her imagination. It was only when she reached the outskirts of town that a strange sensation washed over her. A distant voice seemed to call out her name, echoing through the chilling night air. Emily froze in her tracks, her breath catching in her throat. She couldn't explain the eerie feeling that engulfed her, as if an unseen force was guiding her towards something inexplicable. Ignoring her instincts, Emily reluctantly followed the beckoning call, unable to resist the haunting pull. As she stepped into the dimly lit forest, the dense canopy above seemed to engulf her in darkness, and a sense of foreboding surrounded her like an ominous mist. Suddenly, a cold wind howled through the trees, causing the branches to sway and creak in an eerie symphony. Emily's heart raced, and she turned to leave, only to find herself disoriented, unable to recognize the path she had taken. Panic set in, and she tried to retrace her steps, but the forest seemed to shift and change around her, leading her deeper into the shadows. Her surroundings twisted and contorted, making it impossible to find her way back to the safety of the town. As she stumbled through the haunting forest, strange figures appeared and disappeared in the darkness, their glowing eyes fixated on her like predatory creatures lurking in the night. The haunting voices grew louder, whispering unsettling words that echoed in her mind. Emily's heart pounded in her chest, and she felt a chilling breath on the back of her neck. A sense of dread washed over her as she realized she was not alone. The forest seemed to come alive with malevolent spirits, their ghostly forms surrounding her, and she could hear their faint, agonizing wails. Terrified, Emily pushed forward, desperate to escape the sinister realm she had unwittingly stumbled into. But the forest seemed to taunt her, leading her in circles, and each time she thought she had found an exit, it vanished before her eyes. Just when despair threatened to consume her, a distant glimmer of light caught her attention. With renewed hope, she followed the faint glow, and it led her to a clearing where an old, decrepit cabin stood. The cabin exuded a sense of malevolence, but Emily had no other choice. She had to seek refuge from the horrors that lurked within the forest. With trembling hands, she pushed open the creaky door and stepped inside. The interior of the cabin was dimly lit by flickering candles, casting eerie shadows on the walls. A chill ran down Emily's spine as she felt an unseen presence watching her from the darkness. She tried to muster the courage to leave, but the door slammed shut behind her, trapping her inside. Whispers filled the air, and Emily felt a cold, ghostly hand graze her shoulder. Her heart raced as the walls seemed to close in on her, and the sinister energy of the cabin intensified. She knew she was not alone in this accursed place. Suddenly, a haunting figure materialized before her, its pale face contorted in agony. It reached out with skeletal fingers, and Emily screamed in terror, trying to back away. But there was nowhere to run, and the ghostly figure advanced, its wailing voice echoing through the cabin. In a moment of desperation, Emily remembered an old tale she had heard about breaking curses. With trembling hands, she reached into her pocket and retrieved a small silver locket that her grandmother had given her. Clutching it tightly, she mustered all her courage and shouted a plea for protection. To her surprise, the locket glowed with a faint, ethereal light, and the haunting figure before her recoiled, its anguished cries fading into the distance. The oppressive atmosphere in the cabin lifted, and the walls no longer felt like they were closing in. With the locket in hand, Emily pushed open the door and ran as fast as her legs could carry her, desperate to escape the horrors of the forest and the malevolent cabin. As she burst through the tree line, the first rays of dawn illuminated the horizon, dispelling the darkness that had held her captive. Exhausted and relieved, Emily made her way back to the town, vowing never to venture into the haunted forest again. She could still feel the haunting presence and hear the whispers in her mind, a chilling reminder of the horrors she had encountered that fateful night. From then on, Emily would be plagued by haunting nightmares, and the locket she held dear would become a constant source of comfort and protection. The horrors of that night had forever changed her, leaving her with a lingering sense of unease and a belief in the supernatural that would stay with her for the rest of her days. Despite her best efforts to move on from the terrifying encounter in the haunted forest, Emily couldn't shake off the feeling that something malevolent still lingered in the shadows. Night after night, haunting nightmares tormented her, and the haunting whispers seemed to echo in her mind, growing louder with each passing day. One evening, as the moon cast its eerie glow upon the town, Emily felt a strange and unsettling presence surrounding her. The air was thick with an oppressive darkness, and the streets seemed deserted, as if the town itself held its breath in fear. Unable to ignore the ominous atmosphere, Emily found herself drawn back to the haunted forest once more. It was as if an unseen force compelled her to return, to face the horrors she had tried to forget. As she stepped into the forest, the haunting figures materialized before her, their glowing eyes fixated on her like predatory creatures. The whispers grew louder, taunting and tormenting her, as if they knew her deepest fears and darkest secrets. Desperation washed over Emily as she tried to break free from the sinister grasp of the forest, but it was no use. The shadows seemed to stretch and contort, ensnaring her like malevolent tendrils. In her pocket, the silver locket that had once brought her protection now felt like a mere trinket, powerless against the overwhelming malevolence that surrounded her. She clutched it tightly, hoping for a miracle, but the locket remained dormant, offering no solace this time. With each step, the forest seemed to twist and warp, leading Emily deeper into its heart. The haunting spirits closed in on her, their mournful wails filling the air, drowning out any semblance of hope. Then she saw him, Gabriel, her charismatic future lover, his alluring smile now replaced with a sinister grin. The darkness had consumed him, turning him into something malevolent and vengeful.
"No one can escape their fate,"
Gabriel hissed, his voice echoing with a haunting resonance. Emily's heart pounded in her chest, and she tried to turn away, but the forest seemed to hold her captive. As if it fed on her fear and despair, Isabella and Michael appeared beside Gabriel, their once captivating presence now shrouded in darkness. "We are bound together forever," Isabella's haunting voice chimed in, and Michael's sorrowful gaze pierced her soul. Realization dawned upon Emily. She was trapped in a curse, forever connected to these malevolent spirits. There was no escape, no way to break free from the horrors that haunted her. In a moment of desperation, she screamed, her cries echoing through the haunted forest. But there was no one to hear her, no one to save her from the inescapable nightmare. As the night wore on, the haunting figures closed in on Emily, their ghostly forms surrounding her like a malevolent choir. The forest seemed to merge with the shadows, becoming a labyrinth of darkness from which there was no return. In the depths of the haunted forest, Emily's cries were silenced, her fate sealed within the sinister realm. The town whispered tales of a girl who had disappeared, swallowed by the darkness of the cursed forest, forever haunted by the malevolent spirits she had encountered. From that night on, the haunted forest became a place of dread and terror, a forbidden realm that no one dared to enter. And the legend of Emily and her malevolent future lovers lived on, a terrifying tale of horror and fate, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurks within the shadows.